Hello and welcome to Dixon Cox with me, Nick Dixon, and Paul Cox off the telly. How you doing, Paul?
I'm good, thanks, Nick. Um, yeah, all good. Does it not? Let's have a weather update. It does feel to me like it's been continuously set
Mm.
fair for some time. Good weather. I'm out playing golf a lot. Not much rain.
It's been cooler than the very hot spell we had. It's now gone cooler, but my house has yet to notice because I'm in a new build that retains heat. It's like a kind of volcano for about
Storing
10
it
years.
forever.
Yeah, yeah. So it's yet to fully cool down. I've got a fan on still. I've just come from a 3-hour live stream, so this might be a bit late. I'm flustered. I'm running around, Paul. I'm trying to do everything because my whole
Flustered Dixon Cox.
flustered Dixon Cots because GB ended, and since then I've been rushing around. Last week did. It was ridiculous. Podcast on Monday, and I can't remember what the hell I did. I remember I just did two. I'm a fan of one thing per day. I did like two things every day. Yeah, Monday I did a podcast and live stream, 2-hour podcast Tuesday. Wednesday was a podcast and GB News. Thursday was two podcasts recorded. Friday was Lotus Eaters, and Saturday I'm just like, ugh. This is still less than anyone's normal job. Let's be clear. And then yesterday, I did an interview with a very big guest, which will be coming out very soon. And then that's all I managed to do yesterday because I did it in studio. Then today, no, then yesterday I went to GB News. I've missed a whole day. Monday I did that big podcast. Yesterday I went on GB News. Today I've done a 3-hour live stream. Now this. Who cares? Podcast starts at 1:16. Yeah, yeah. All right, we'll start the bloody podcast. Calm down. But Paul, I was going to ask you one other thing. I can't remember. Doesn't matter. Find the full versions on nickdixon.net where we've got everything, not just content. We've got everything you
Everything's
could
on there.
need on nickdixon.net. All your questions answered on nickdixon.net. We've got full versions of this. Also, my interviews with Carl Benjamin, Lord Frost, Ben Habib, Charlie Downs, whoever you like. Anyone you like, you just type it in and it appears. All on nickdixon.net. And the other podcast that Paul's been slacking off on, but we're going to get back to that as well. We do a subscriber-only podcast. But the problem is I'm at Lotus Eaters and he's on the golf course. So we need to do that as well.
Some of that's true, but busy. I'm a busy boy, Nick. I'm a
Yeah.
busy boy.
I've weaved in some untruths and some truths. It's a kind of
I do like to play golf as often as I possibly can, I must admit.
Yeah, he's constantly on the golf course. So speaking of that, maybe we'll get to Trump and Epstein later. It suddenly popped into my mind. And Trump's been visiting his golf courses. So later we're going to get into the press conference with Trump and Starmer, which had some lull moments. We're also going to have to get into Starmer's statement on Palestine, which I don't really want to, but we have to because it's big news and it's quite complicated. He says that he's going to recognize Palestine as a state, but only in September and only after certain conditions are met. And this has gone down badly with basically everyone. And before that, we're going to do the Online Safety Act, which has come into place and is a total bleep storm, as we could have predicted. So let's go through all those. Starting with the Online Safety Act, this has been a massive thing. You'll have seen this if you're in this country and alive. Peter Kyle from Labour, who is in charge of, he's sort of the spokesman for all this rubbish, he's been doing the rounds and most notably calling Farage not exactly a pedo, but pedo adjacent by saying that if you don't support this Online Safety Act, you are on the side of Jimmy Savile, which was quite the opening gambit. I was really amazed by this. And not only did he say it, which many people have pointed out, but as I said last night on GB, Jonathan Brash, MP, doubled down on it. Mike Tapp defended it and called Farage a snowflake. They've never quite grasped the snowflake thing, the left. Snowflake is where you're like, I can't go to school because I'm dyslexic or I don't know. I need a car because I get anxiety sometimes. Snowflake is not, you've accused me essentially of being adjacent to Jimmy Savile. Now I need to clear my name. That's called defending your honor. That's called like basic, I don't know if it's defamation, but it's like, it's basic self-defense, isn't it? It's not snowflakery. Anyway, so Labour have all been going with that angle, bizarre angle, completely self-destructive in my opinion. Farage had a strange mini press conference thing where he replied to it with him and Zia Yusuf sat there, both looking like they were gold because they'd had like makeup slapped on them. They looked like they'd had gold paint on their face. And the sound was even worse than GB News. Then they played a clip of Peter Carr where you couldn't hear him. And then at the end, they sat there and Farage said, I want an apology. And then just sat there. And the camera held on the page. It was like, it's just fucking Twin Peaks. It just held on them. And then eventually it went out. It's the weirdest clip. So the whole thing was very, very weird. And Farage had the unfortunate sort of Freudian slip at one point of saying, he said this thing that I'm like Jimmy Savile, I'm on his side, and it's so ridiculous. It's almost not true. I was like, almost not true. That's not the best phrase you could have used there, Nigel. But what he meant, of course, was like beyond belief. Can't believe that you said this. Anyway, I've got more stuff on this, Paul. But what was your take?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not. The Peter Carl thing was astonishing, wasn't it? I think it's subsequently come out or rumoured from certain journalists that this was endorsed by Number 10. They sat down and discussed this previous to the interview and said, perhaps you say something like this. Of course, they would do that because it's propaganda 101, isn't it? They're playing to their own audience, their own audience only, which I'll get back to because that's their problem. What you do is you say something like that and it sticks in the psyche.
The dead cat thing, you mean?
Yeah, it sticks in the psyche of the people that are listening. And within, preaching to their own audience, within that audience, they've got a soundbite to perpetuate now. Oh, of course, if you don't support the Online Act, then you support paedophilia. Or, as I believe he was trying to say, was if this was back in the day, then this is the sort of thing that Jimmy Savile would have been using. He would have been using online to do his stuff. I don't know if he would have done, by the way. I don't know if you've looked at his crimes, but there were mainly children hospital / morgue associated. Not many of them online. So I don't know. I don't know if it's technically true, Kyle. And as a result, it sticks in that psyche and it gets perpetuated. And you get things like the Farage riots. Some people on the left will say the Farage riots of summer 2024, and you think, well, they weren't the Farage. You just entirely dismiss Southport and why it happened, but it doesn't matter because it's their audience and they're who they're preaching to. Unfortunately, it's so nonsensical and so deflammatory that it doesn't stand up with any it doesn't stand up to scrutiny, and there's no integrity to what he's saying. It's playground stuff. It's just, we're scared of this guy. He is our opponent, and we're going to say anything. We're going to sling any mud to get at him, which of course means that they don't believe in their own arguments. So they don't actually believe that the online bill is there to do what it says it's going to do. And if you read, I think it's gov.uk, which is a Number 10's website. If you read that, when it talks about the online bill, in the first sentence, it says it's there to protect children and adults. So hang on a minute. So we need protecting as well, do we?
We actually do against this Labour government, but in a different way.
Exactly.
We don't go to prison.
Let's not. I mean, I don't know if people are protected from us now. I mean, as it's through Substack and YouTube, probably not. But
trigger warning.
Yeah, there's no nudity, not yet.
No. Although I think you just said deflammatory, and the comments will pick it up if I don't. That's
did I say deflammatory?
That's when it that's anti-inflammation.
Swollen. Did I say what I said?
Paul's got his ailments on his mind. He's like this deflammatory. I don't know if he did or not. It sounded a bit like it, but I thought
maybe I did. I mean, it's not beyond me. Let's face it. It's defamatory.
We do need to deflame the situation a bit, but
we do. But
they've gone for inflammatory and defamatory.
It was bizarre. So it's bizarre if Farage and if you support free speech, if you support Farage, or even if you're neutral, it's an entirely bizarre statement. If you are a Peter Kyle / Labour / Starmer fan, and that must be a very small group, then it makes perfect sense to you because what you want to hear is the other side just denounced in some way, gone, be done with. Why not call them a paedophile? It's up there with racist, isn't it? It's like, racist, paedophile, bigot, all these things. That's what you are, so you can't be listening. It just chucks everything you say out. Gone.
It sounded crazy. When they were calling it, now we all know now when people call you racist and far right, you just laugh and ignore it. But for a long time, it was very effective. This doesn't feel effective to me. This feels crazy and weird and not in keeping with Labour's tone on anything. Starmer's all about, got to be serious, Mr. Serious. I'm very serious. I'm a lawyer and I do everything seriously by the book. And by the way, you're like Jimmy Savile. I mean, it was Starmer himself who did the most sour face when Boris Johnson said that, he was busy. He was busy not prosecuting Jimmy Savile. He referenced Savile in the House of Commons, and it was thought to be very uncouth. And now Starmer's lot are doing the same. And as you say, it seems to have been a memo. And I asked Matthew Torbett about this last night because he used to be involved in Labour. And he said, it'll be a WhatsApp group or something. Because why did Jonathan Brash also say it and Mike Tapp and all these people? They all doubled down. Very, very weird. And Peter Carl, by the way, a bit more information on him. He was the same bloke who turned up on Newsnight in a T-shirt, which was a bit weird already. It's like, why is an MP on? I mean, I'm wearing my Tommy polo shirt because I'm going to go out later and start sparking some people out. But why did allegedly? But why did Peter Carl wear a t-shirt on Newsnight? That's one point. Number two, Paul, and I'll get in so much trouble for this from the dyslexic lobby, I know who sponsored this podcast. But Peter Carl said himself in 2019 that he had the reading and comprehension age of an 8-year-old. And my only problem with that is, let me just say, the last time I was assessed when I was 30, my reading and comprehension. I fucked that one, haven't I? I've not managed to read the word comprehension.
This is the clip.
I've got too much going on. I'm trying to produce at the same time. The last time I was assessed when I was 30, my reading and comprehension age was estimated at 8 years and 3 months. And I said, I hate to tell you this, but with that reading age, we'll have to censor what you can see on the internet. I mean, he's not 18, right? And the whole lot I said to me, I was like, think about it, Paul. If you've got the reading age of an 8-year-old and the comprehension age, well, exactly, you'll get there. How can you comprehend what you're seeing on the internet? So we're going to have to censor Peter Kyle with his own act for his own safety.
I mean, this is at pains to say it's not censoring. Of course it's censoring. Yeah. You always hide censoring behind a good cause. Nobody has any issue with stopping children from seeing pornographic material.
No, okay. It's rare you find someone outside of maybe Goebbels who just says, you know, I love censoring and I don't care who knows it. To paraphrase the old Norm Macdonald joke, I just love censorship.
Exactly. So of course it's this thin veil of, oh no, we don't want the children to see, or as Starmer said this week, you know, preventing children from committing suicide by accessing certain things online. Nobody has an issue with that. Nobody wants children to commit suicide or see hardcore pornography. That's what we do as a society. You know, a child is raised by a village, not by an individual. Okay, that's what we do as a society. So that's within the parenting. That's within our culture. First of all, you need to accept we've got a culture. Okay, but we've been over that. So this online bill is totally unrequired. It's not there to do that. It just happens to do that. It's just something that it does. That Labour can stand behind. What it really does is it provides censorship for things the Labour Party don't want us to see. Because when you dig down below these excuses, you go, oh yeah, I don't want that. Oh, that seems a perfect idea. And then it's all about, inclusivity, discrimination of minority groups. And you're like, ooh, who's the arbiter of that? What are you talking about? What does that mean? Can you define that? Oh no, we don't need to define that. We're going to define that for you. No need for you to think. We'll do that for you, and we'll tell you what you can and can't see. So all you end up seeing is the things they want you to see. And of course, if you're not doing the sort of jobs that you and I do, and you just watch the BBC all day, and you have your hair ruffled and your head patted, and you're told all the things they want you to hear, then you won't know anything's going on. You'll have absolutely no idea. That's why they're so terrified of independent media. And it's independent media that have propelled populism and Farage and Reform and Trump and all these things into frontline politics again.
Yeah, and to be clear, what it's doing is, I'm not really seeing it because I have Twitter Premium, and so inherently it knows your age, I believe. You must have verified yourself when you sign up. I can't even remember. But people who don't have that because they're not paying for it, because I pay for it because I can upload videos and so on. But if they're just punters not paying for it, they're seeing, oh, this is restricted in your region because we need to see your age is 18. So they're not seeing things like Katie Lamb tweets or just videos that we all see of street violence and things. So, and the further irony, of course, Paul, is that Labour wants to give the vote to 16-year-olds. At the same time, it's saying they can't access this content. Yeah. I'm going, well, if they can't see videos of what a mess you've made of the country and how the UK is disintegrating, then that's going to inform their vote, isn't it? So how can they be banned from seeing information and be an informed voter? Complete contradiction. The age would have to be 16. And another quick point, of course, there's also the deeper problems with it, which is a bit too dense to go into maybe, but it gives Ofcom all sorts of powers. But even more than that, it gives the government powers to overrule Ofcom, as if Ofcom weren't communist enough. But one crazy thing, of course, is that the Tories brought it in. The Tories brought it in, idiots like Nadine Dorries, and even Jacob Rees-Mogg admitted he voted for it on GB last night. And they didn't know what they were voting for. They didn't fully understand. They didn't understand what VPNs were. Mogg now knows what VPNs are, but you think Jacob Rees-Mogg knew what VPNs were? No, he didn't. They didn't realize you can just get around a lot of this stuff and that kids will be therefore exposed to worse things. Also, Paul, the Tories bringing it in, then hands Labour this incredible weapon to use against them. Because if you're the party of opposition, okay, you're the uni party, but in theory, you don't want Labour having the ability to censor, because of course the party in power wants to censor because they can censor how badly they're doing. But the opposition, especially if it's a new Tories that's going to try and be more in touch with the sort of populist uprising, they shouldn't want this. But they created this and handed the weapon to their enemies.
Yeah. Hans Laber, by the way, is quite a famous German politician, I believe.
Did I say Hans Laber?
No, you didn't. It sounded that way in my head. I mean, you said Hans Laber.
Oh, Hans Laber, yeah.
But in my head, I heard
have
Hans
Laber. I have the worst of German qualities and the worst of Labour. I want to take all your money very efficiently and distribute it to immigrants.
Welcome.
I have ways of
Laber.
taking your money. Yeah.
These are my lederhosen. So I mean, they want us to believe it's cynical because cynical seems okay. It's just politics. It's the world of politics. It's cynicism. It's brinkmanship. It's gamesmanship. It's not. It's sinister. There's no two ways about it. Watch any Keir Starmer press conference, and we'll get onto this later, so I won't go into too much detail. But watch it with the sound off. That is not a man.
Just for his looks.
That is not a man who should ever be trusted. Ever be trusted. Watch a Keir Starmer press conference, almost any speech with the sound off, and just concentrate on him. And if you saw him, if he was preaching at some rally or something, you'd immediately go, there is our wrong 'un. And I'll get back to that a bit later. So stay tuned in. Thank you. So for me, it's incredibly sinister. Now, I say this thinking to myself, do you know what? If this had happened 15 years ago, a bit like the VPN thing and Ofcom, I would have just assumed that was a quirk, an unfortunate quirk, byproduct of some less than good policy. But there's never been these unfortunate quirks. There's never been these coincidences. They've all been, without being far too conspiratorial, because I don't believe it is conspiratorial, they've always been constructed and contrived in a way to achieve exactly what the byproduct is. You just look at all the byproducts of all of the policies, and it tells you everything you need to know about what's trying to be achieved. If you can push it through like the Trojan horse, inside that Trojan horse is the surprise. And by the time the surprise comes out, it's too late. With regards to Ofcom...
Make it sound like a Kinder Egg or something.
Surprise! It's Hans Laber.
Surprise! We've destroyed your city.
Exactly. Beware Greeks bearing gifts. I don't know if that's xenophobic. But hey, if it is, this is the channel for it.
We love all those. Indian giver, that's a phrase, isn't it?
Indian giver, yeah.
Where did Chinese whispers come from? I suppose that's kind of an ironic question because we've lost it in the translation.
Actually, they didn't actually say Chinese whispers.
They said something else. I like whispers. Who doesn't? It's a light chocolatey snack.
What did that Chinese person say? So, getting back to it. So with regards to Ofcom, later on you discover that there's this huge surprise. It's too late. It's embedded now. It's there for your own good. BBC Verify to me is exactly the same thing, by the way. BBC Verify is not there to verify anything. You can't verify yourself. You can't keep telling people that you're independent and impartial when you're clearly not. That's the trick they've been playing for years and years and years. And there's plenty of people who look at things like BBC Verify and think, what a noble thing. They won't even. They wouldn't lie to us. Look, they're telling us they wouldn't.
Even BBC workers think Verify's a joke, and I happen to know. And Verify don't care about verifying. Carl Benjamin, they said, he went to Totnes twice to stir up agitation. He said, I've been to Totnes once as part of this political tour. I think it was when he was in UKIP maybe, but he went once. He never went back. He's like, can you correct this? They never did. It's like they just make stuff up. Verify, complete joke. Yeah, we know this. And that's why the Tories are so naive. They're sort of Miriam Cates types. You meet Miriam GB, nice person. But they're the kind of people like, we care about safety and all that kind of thing, which, of course, everyone cares about child safety.
Part
of the problem,
naive. Yeah? Part of the problem. That is the problem, okay? Miriam Cates, very well-meaning Conservative MP, nice person, genuinely Christian, genuinely believe that everything genuinely believe that the majority of the things she's doing as a politician, she believes are for the greater good. But you need those people. if you are going to employ sinister, propagandized policies, you need a Miriam Case. And I'm not. And by the way, I don't want to use Miriam, but you need someone like that because that would undermine her intellectual ability. And I don't want to do that because
I'm
that
not
would be
saying
entirely.
she's done, but I'm saying I'm sure she's very smart, but has she or people like that fully
So,
grasped or fully embraced to the extent that maybe I have, and maybe you can say I'm wrong, but the sort of realities of power and the fact that how much our state hates us, you know.
exactly. So there's something innate within us as humans that we want to see the good. Okay, so the contrarian nature within people like you and I, and many people, if they admit they've got it in there, sort of lifts the lid on that a little bit. But our default position often as humans is to want to see the best. Why would these other people want to do these things? And you get enough sort of collectivism on that thought process. And, the outcome is, well, they probably didn't mean to. It was just an unfortunate byproduct. Well, 1,000 unfortunate byproducts in a row gives you a pretty sinister policy and a way of controlling people, okay? And, if you don't think governments are about controlling people, then you haven't really understood politics.
Yeah.
It's just making sure we've got the best meaning control freaks in charge. That's what it's about. So, and I'm not sitting here saying it should be this candidate, that candidate, or the other. I want the best candidate that supports my politics. And my politics aren't necessarily the same as yours, Nick, or the same as everyone watching this. So that's where we have to have the compromise, and that's why we've got democracy, and that's what makes places like Great Britain great, or once did. You erode that culture, you erode that democratic ethos, and you end up with what we're getting now, which is authoritarianism through smiley faces via the back door.
Mm-hmm.
And if you think that Keir Starmer isn't authoritarian, you've totally misunderstood what's going on. Totally misunderstood what's going on.
Yeah.
When you look at his history politically and you see where he's come from and you see from which part of the political spectrum, his ideologies were born, I mean, they are very much opposed to mine. And I'm not saying we shouldn't have politics opposed to mine. But if you identify that and you are able to understand it, you'll see exactly where all these policies have come from. Nobody knew that he was going to come out with the press conference he did yesterday with regards to Palestine. Again, we'll get to it later. Stay tuned. But just that alone tells us that the tricks are up the sleeve. There's 1,000 Trojan horses at the moment going through 1,000 different fort gates.
Yeah, and you know what, David Starkey has spoken a lot about this, and hopefully we'll have a forthcoming podcast with him where you'll see he talks a lot about the human rights legislation. Why is the system like this? Why can it not be trusted? Why can you not hand them things like this? Partly it's to do their ideology, which is baked in the idea of human rights, which has very questionable foundations. Some of it is in this Tom Bingham book, The Rule of Law. He was this legal guy who tried to extend the definitions of law to international law, to extending the definition of human rights to absurd degrees. And Dominic Cummings talks about it in terms of the pathological system working as intended. That's a phrase he keeps using. I defer to Stafford Beer, who came up with the heuristic. The purpose of a system is what it does. So, which is what I was thinking about when you were talking about the system, why it's so sort of pernicious now and malevolent. I don't even know why, but in Stafford Beer's analysis, you just sort of say, okay, this is what it does. I may have talked about this before. Since this is what it does, that's all I'm going to focus on. So I say the purpose of our system, therefore, is to facilitate the mass rape and torture of children, for example, and it's to smuggle in Afghans, and it's to impoverish us, or it's to any other number of things. It's to hand out all our money to and houses to foreign people, to foreign criminals. It's to prioritize foreign criminals over innocent people like Lucy Conley, anarcho-tyranny. So that's what we have, and therefore you're handing those people the ability to censor, and it's never going to go well.
Yeah, look, and if these policies allow those things to happen and they don't stop it, that shows you what the intention was in the first place. There is absolutely no way you couldn't stop the small boats.
Right.
You could stop the small boats. You could stop what happened in Epping. You can stop absolutely every one of these things. I was talking about it on GB News, Ben Leo, late edition on Sunday night. And Peter, I forget his name, the obligatory lefty, and fair play to the lefties that go on there. It's not an easy job. But essentially, I was saying, as I have done a number of times on this podcast, we're going to have to change laws. We're not going to have to break laws. Laws are man-made. We're going to have to change laws. And I'm saying that it's tantamount to government-sponsored terrorism, what's going on, and basically indirectly accused me of inflaming the conversation and inciting more violence. Because that's always going to be the reaction. Quite clearly, that's not what I'm saying. The government are inciting the violence. That's what I'm saying, and they are building the policies to enable it to happen. Oh, it's just unfortunate this allows the small boats, or that we have 50,000 extra Afghans coming in, or hotels full of migrants in sexually frustrated men put next to schools, and we can't understand why they behave like heathens.
Yeah, the crime is noticing, is what you're saying, and you're noticing, and you're not allowed to notice. And that's what I was trying to get at before as well, when you talked about authoritarianism. We're at this late stage of decline where, or whatever stage we're at, we don't know, we'd have to see the future, but we're at a certain point where they can't handle the problems, they can't tackle any of the problems, all they can do is tackle the response, hence shut up, hence online safety, all that kind of thing. We can't tackle the boats, or we won't. We can't tackle so-called legal immigration. We can't tackle Epping. We can't tackle the economy. We can't tackle the housing crisis. We can't tackle the birth rate. We can't tackle anything. So it's just like, I tell you what, stop talking about it, and here's your online safety bill.
And it's always the reaction that's attacked.
Yeah.
You imagine if you were walking through a train station, minding your own business, someone lunged at you in order to harm you, and in self-defense, you sparked them out and carried on with your business.
Just a hypothetical here.
Hypothetically, I would say that the reaction was balanced, because it was, it was in line with it was in line with the initial action. That's what happens. That's a metaphor. I mean, I don't know if that would ever happen, Nick, but that is a metaphor for what's happening in society day in, day out with regards to all of these touch points. Mm-hmm. We put sexually deprived, paedophilic, foreign cultured people into an environment where they believe that they've got a right to access women, and they behave in an abhorrent way. The people that react to that and say, that's not on our watch, mate, that's not how we behave here, and they do it in an angry way, you only see the video footage of the reaction and the body laying on the floor, hypothetically.
Well, the English have begun to hate. I called our last podcast, The English Begin to Hate. Did very well. Did a lot better than, because normally these, I'm doing okay with the YouTube channel, but long podcast, who's going to listen to it all? But it did very well. And I wonder if that title was to do with it, because we have had enough.
Maybe. I just put them on. I mean,
and again,
I'd like to thank the person who said that I should be a regular co-host on Dixon Cox.
Paul's the best co-host. He should be on more. I'm like, Paul's the only co-host, and he's on every week. And
his name's in the title. It's not.
And we do an additional show on the Substack. So it's like, I can't really do more than that, can I? I mean, what can you say? There is no other co-host. There is guest episodes, but maybe I've not been clear enough. I mean,
so what you're asking for, and thank you, by the way, for watching and contributing. What you're asking for, Nick is giving you.
Some people still think this is called The Current Theme because it appears on that same audio channel, because why have a separate audio channel? So it's all a bit... It's all.
Yeah, it's okay.
We're working on it all, but they get the content.
I got the compliment.
You get the compliment, and that's all you get. But it's it's enough. I can live on compliments.
Yeah, that's all I want.
Which is good, because I've been sacked. So not really. I'm still on GB News, so you can't say I've been sacked. So someone tried to the other day, and they said I thought you were sacked. I said guess not, followed by the C word, because I'm still on the channel. There's always someone like that, isn't it? There's always someone.
Not, you cobbler.
Yeah. There's always someone around to.
Anyway. I mean, we just slightly little diversion. When you write a sort of mini viral-esque tweet or something, there comes a point. There's a cut-off point where you abandon the comments. You abandon viewing them. It's not yours anymore. It's a piece of art. It's gone out there. They are commenting. There's a whole other world of arguments going on that you're not associated with. It's just, you get tagged in it every single response. And do you know what? It's no longer ours. You make of it what you will.
Yeah. Well, let's plow on, Paul, because I woke up feeling ill today and I did a 3-hour stream. So let's get on to my favourite
Which is a
topic.
long piss. So you should get that checked.
It's that young man's propulsion. I don't know if we talked about it. The urologist guy said to me, "Well, some of the young men, they have that early strong proportion." I'm like, "I'm still young, at least in terms of my urinary flow." Um,
Which would
weird
make a great
digression.
band name.
I just realized, like, I reference like that. That's on the paid content. They don't know what the hell I'm talking about.
That would be your first album name, wouldn't it? Yeah, Urinary Flow with Nick
Yeah, it's
Dixon.
like a Pink Floyd concept album.
Yeah.
So it just sounded like that to me. So let's get off that and on to we're doing serious, hard-hitting politics
Sorry,
here,
I
Paul.
forgot.
It's my favorite topic, Israel and Palestine. You can't go wrong with it. You cannot go wrong. You will make friends, whatever you say. It's a lovely, lovely topic. It's not my expert topic, but we have to talk about it. So old Starmer popped up. He said he wasn't going to recognize Palestine as a state, even though the French had done it. No, I'm not going to do it. That was Friday. But a lot can change in 4 days. He comes out on Tuesday, says, actually, we are going to recognize Palestine as a state in September. They just have to do a few little things. And people were stunned at this because it didn't satisfy anyone. So of course, it's not satisfied the Americans. Tammy Bruce said it was a slap in the face for victims of October 7th, which rewards Hamas. Netanyahu, of course, said Starmer rewards Hamas's monstrous terrorism and punishes its victims. A jihadist state on Israel's border today will threaten Britain tomorrow. Appeasement towards jihadist terrorists always fails. It will fail you too. It will not happen. So he wasn't keen. Now, why did Starmer do it? One reason. Look, I totally accept if you're morally repelled by and repulsed by what's happening at the moment. It's very hard to defend what Israel are doing now. I know some people, maybe even listeners of this, will defend it, but I won't because it's obviously horrific, and I don't have a dog in the fight. In that I won't. I'm not partisan. So when you get very, very partisan about either side, on one side you end up minimizing October 7th and going around with Hamas signs, and on the other side you end up saying no, none of that's happening. No, it's all propaganda on Hamas, and it's like no, horrific stuff is happening. So let's be honest about that. But I don't know if this was moral. It's certainly not entirely. It had a very strong domestic politics element. 130 MPs had already written calling Starmer to do this. You've also got the threat. It may not be relevant, but you've got the threat now from the further left. Zara Sultana has said that Labour is a party of genocide. But I'm sure he's less worried about that. What Starmer's worried about is his own party, quite serious, big people in the party, urging him to do this. But of course, in doing so, he has upset the US, as you inevitably would, and especially Israel, as you inevitably would. So you can't win on this one. You've got to pick. You've got to go with France and Macron, or you've got to go with Israel. You really can't pick. And he's tried to play this impossible game, and now he's alienated them. And the US maybe has been too pro-Israel, but you're going to alienate the Trump administration. I noticed he waited till Trump had left, or at least left the room. I mean, he waited a few days, didn't he? But the last thing I'll say about it, Paul, and then I'll shut up because it's not my expert area, but I did look into this Montevideo Convention of 1933, signed in the capital of Uruguay, Montevideo. And this was a 4-part convention that said you've got to meet these 4 criteria to be a state. So a state has to have a permanent population, a defined territory and government, and the capacity to enter into relations with other states. And it's sort of ambiguous which of these Palestine could be said to have. I mean, for example, I'll tell you it's ambiguous because Alex Dean on GB News said it didn't have any of them, whereas Matthew Torbett claimed it did have some of them. So it's ambiguous, but whether it can even qualify as a state is questionable, whether we can even do that. In other words, it seemed more like Starmer was just trying to play a kind of middle role, appease his party, without really saying anything that particularly makes sense in terms of international relations, in terms of what can really be done in terms of foreign policy. But what do you think?
Well, first of all, if you watch the press conference, again, as I alluded to earlier, if you watch it in silence and don't listen to the words that he's saying, first of all, the first thing you notice is quite clearly his body language tells you he doesn't believe a word that's coming out of his mouth, which is entirely bizarre.
Very quick interlude. You're going to have one of these body language expert channels on YouTube soon.
Yeah,
like pause it. Look what he's doing there. Classic.
Yeah, exactly. And as far as I can tell, not much qualification required. So I can I could do that.
You just need to have access to YouTube.
Look at the way his right hand's moving. So first things first, he doesn't look like he's believed what he's saying. We know that because he's got the moral fibre of a wet Weetabix. You know, no one understands what Keir Starmer stands for. He also uniquely makes it look like he's within someone else's suit. He doesn't look like he fits within his body. His body doesn't look like it fits within his clothing, and he looks like he's preaching to a people he doesn't understand. And first thing you've got to understand in order to really put this in context is this is geopolitics, not national politics. And the only people that can win from what he said, the only people, are the backbenchers putting him under pressure. Nobody else wins from what he says. Okay, so what he's saying to Hamas is he's incentivizing Hamas by telling them if they do what he wants, he won't give them what they want. So if they don't give back the sausages, he'll attack Israel by recognizing Palestine as a state. Israel being our natural ally, by the way. Hamas being very much our natural enemy. So he's incentivizing our enemy by telling them if they do something he wants, he won't give them what they want. He's attacking our natural ally by saying, I'm going to do the very thing you don't want us to do in order to try and help you out, even though I've not been asked. So first of all, it's a huge paradox. None of it makes any real logical sense. It appeases no one on the international scale. It doesn't appease Macron and the Europhiles, who are the people that he's trying to impress, because that, as he sees, is his only chance of success in politics, because nationally he's fucked. Internationally, he's very weak. This makes us, as UK, look incredibly weak. Incredibly weak. Keir Starmer looks dead in the water as a result of this, which can only mean that the UK is sunk with him. It's a catastrophe. It's an international geopolitical catastrophe because it means nothing. He didn't have to say it. No one asked him to say it, and he never collaborated with anyone.
His own party strongly asked him to say it.
Yeah, but what does that matter? This is why I contextualised it and framed it as geopolitics. At this point, it doesn't matter what his backbencher thinks because they've got a load of purple-haired wet flannels in the background going, we love Palestine. So what? Okay, let's park that. We understand.
But I think it was likes of Rayner, likes of Hilary Benn. You know, it wasn't just your sort of nutter backbenchers. It was your nutter.
Yeah, they're trying to appease their constituents to keep their votes.
Oh yeah, there's also the votes, of course. There's also, which we didn't even mention. There's the votes, of course. We've got all these people with Labour with very marginal seats, and the person that almost beating them is, "Hello, my entire platform is Palestine.
Yeah.
I live in Blackburn." Yeah, exactly.
Jess Phillips is shitting her pants.
She's shitting it. Wes Streeting. Yeah,
Wes Streeting is probably, by comparison, the best Labour MP in the cabinet. Is also got a great. I mean, he might have to defect. He should go to reform.
He's been relatively sensible given how close his margin was.
Yeah, and he's done some good things, but has been pulled back in line several times. You can just tell. He knows how to set himself up as potential PM candidate, but at the same time, in order to remain in the cabinet and therefore have the power he needs and the platform he needs to become the next PM, he needs to fall in line with whatever the Starmer cabal are saying. So,
do you know what?
Go on, mate.
No, I was just going to say, do you know what's interesting? Very much based on what you said, Starmer was known as Mr. Ruthless, right? And that's almost his thing. It's like, hey, Mr. Ruthless. He's ruthless in the football team. He's ruthless in the government. You know, got rid of Corbyn. Is trying to ruthlessly bring back Labour to be an election-winning machine, which he did. Then he chooses this moment when he's got this massive majority. Okay, he's got the low approval ratings and various problems, but he chooses to, in his first year, completely backtrack on benefits, backtrack on winter fuel, which was a stupid policy to begin with, and backtrack on this days after he said he wasn't going to do it. So he turns out to be the guy that completely capitulates to the left of his party, to the backbenchers, and not the Steely Blairite, not the Morgan McSweeney thing. You know, he's ignored them consistently, or he's gone with them and then backed off. He backs off the Island of Strangers speech. Every time he does something sensible and ruthless, he backs off it completely.
He doesn't believe it.
No, he doesn't believe it. But he doesn't even stick with it for, pure efficacy, for pure, what's the word I want? I'm just very tired. What's the word that means, not efficacy, but efficacy is a decent word. But what's the other word that means? Expedience, thank you. So expedience alone, he doesn't even stick with it for his own self-interest. He capitulates to the backbench, which is a disaster. But it doesn't even help him in any way. It weakens him.
He makes very bold statements on both sides of the argument, right?
He's bad at politics. He doesn't like politics. Remember that. He doesn't like politics.
I mean, our Prime Minister doesn't like politics. And
It's
You can
mental.
translate "doesn't like politics" to "doesn't understand politics." By the way, it's not. He might not like it. Whatever. That's your truth, Keir.
You
But
tend to
what?
like things you're good at, right?
Yeah, exactly. He doesn't understand it. You can tell that by this whole thing that I'm describing. A man who doesn't look like he fits within his own suit. A man that doesn't look like he fits within his own skin. His mouth says something different to his eyes. His eyes tell him he's pleading for help. His mouth says whatever someone else has written for him. He doesn't look like he should be where he was. He just wants, communism light, and to get rapists off rape in foreign countries, allegedly for satirical purposes. He doesn't believe in anything that he's saying, and the only manifesto pledge that I can point a finger to that's actually been delivered is the votes for 16-year-olds. Outside of that, he's not achieved anything.
When you read the New Statesman piece, you really get a sense, and I know it's just a journalistic piece and they're far left nutters, but you get a sort of a real sense of him, not really of the ideologue who Peter Hitchens alludes to, the Pabloite, being a subset of Trotskyism. And he did used to edit Socialist Alternatives, and he was a socialist and all that. But you get much more sense of an over-promoted manager who wants to just go home, keep his family life separate, a hard worker, clearly, a achiever, clearly, and but not someone who should be a prime minister, someone who should be a high-level lawyer or whatever, which he was, right? And lawyers are awful and ruining the country on the whole, but, some of them are good, but not prime minister.
The ones that we're going to need at some point, they're great.
They're good, yeah. He's not, well, you got free speech union and stuff, but he's not political. He was in his youth, but he just sounds to me like someone who's been overpromoted, wants to keep his family life separate, doesn't like politics, doesn't rate Parliament, has said that he prefers Davos over Westminster, believes in the rule of law, aka the rule of lawyers. He's annoyed that he has to go to Parliament. He's annoyed he has to listen to the opposition shouting at him. He doesn't like any of that. Think about our great politicians like Enoch Powell. Powell, when he wanted to preserve the empire. When we gave away India, he was so disillusioned with that. He said, "Right, I've lost that, but what is my raison d'etre now?" And they said it was actually the love of the House of Commons. Later, it changed again, but for many years, it was the love of the House of Commons and our great Parliament and its great history. And he wrote a history of the House of Lords. Here's someone who respected it, did extraordinary speeches. I did a live stream on one of them. Had massive respect for that institution. You think about, imagine the heavyweights that we had in our Parliament back in the day. Even in Darkest Hour, that very romanticized version with the massive banked seating, which doesn't exist and all that, you sort of watch and go, yeah, this is a serious place of serious people, big intellects, making massive decisions. Of course, we were a much more important country then. But now you just go, this is almost an irrelevance that annoys technocrats. And they're annoyed they have to even be involved in the process of politics. And Starmer seems to be that guy.
Yeah, it's interesting. We were a much more serious country. And we were dealing with, I think we're dealing with equally serious issues now, but we're dealing with equally serious issues from a pretty low baseline. Unfortunately, it does feel like, half of the House of Commons, or maybe even the majority of the House of Commons, wouldn't have made it back in the day. There's an argument now we're living in an era of populism via reform and Farage. I would dispute that to some degree. I believe we've always lived in the era of populism. Every era is other than maybe, I don't know. I mean, the New Labour. Tell me that's not populism. That was exactly what that was. That was very popular politics, and people. I mean, I'm talking. So I'm being reductive now. I'm avoiding a lot of nuance, but nearly all politics, winning politics, by its very nature, is popular.
But isn't populism, just as Starkey has said as well, the new word for democracy, because they don't want democracy, they want to be post-democracy, they want to just rule via the EU and via lawyers and via judges. This kind of type of person, the managerial class that's so annoyed that they have to listen to the plebs, isn't populism just a new smear for democracy?
Yes, I think so. I think framing it like that does help understand a lot of the arguments, actually, because it goes back to this cynical versus sinister thing as well, where they hoodwink the constituents, they hoodwink the public, and once they're in, they do what they like with that power. Now, I'm not suggesting that has not happened in the past or hasn't always happened, but it seems to be done with less and less integrity, and the veil seems to get thinner and thinner. to the point that they get in. And I think this press conference and shooting from the hip with regards to the Palestine becoming a state and forcing yourself into this position of peace negotiator when absolutely nobody is asking you to do it is a problem as well. He won't be party to what's going on almost anywhere. And whatever you might think of Netanyahu is very important in this peace process. And to wind him up in the way that Keir Starmer did yesterday is a ridiculously stupid thing to do. It tells you a complete misunderstanding of geopolitics. It tells you why he thinks Davos is great. It tells you why he probably thinks the WEF is great, because he believes these small groups of people that operate very much within one sphere, within another sphere, is the pinnacle of politics and is the pinnacle of world leadership and is everything we should aspire to. It ignores the fact there are lots of these spheres all around the world, and it's about how you bring those spheres together. Not saying one is great and holding it up. It's about saying how this sphere can work with this sphere to bring this sphere and get everybody on the same page to some degree. The idea of getting democracy across the world is for the birds, by the way. This has been the epicenter of a lot of the wars in the Middle East. The idea that you're going to change culturally these people to believe the things that we do is horseshit. It's not happening. It's never happened. We've got memory of a goldfish when it comes to these things, right back to the Russian-Afghan invasion, 100 years ago, and the fact that they achieved nothing. And there are a million sort of examples that you can pull out to prove it's never going to work. So you have to find other ways of controlling the world to keep it as stable as possible. And it's not by standing up in front of a lectern and talking a lot of horseshit that you don't believe and just antagonizing the situation even further. And it's an emotional reaction as well. It's purely on the back of the starvation fears within Gaza. And by the way, I have no idea how close Gaza is to starvation. Absolutely no idea. And neither do most journalists, because they're briefed by Hamas.
Yeah, but Israel made the mistake of not allowing journalists out there.
I'm not defending Israel here, absolutely. And it'd be great if you could just open the gates and just let them in for a week. I'd love
they
to
only
see.
allow their own basically propaganda journalists in there. They don't allow. I do think terrible things are happening.
By the way, I do as well. We've sat in an environment for 3 to 4 years where we've heavily lent towards the Israel side of the argument for some very, very good reasons, by the way.
Well, there's certainly a pressure to do that, and because it's not my expert topic, I didn't vehemently go back, but it was uncomfortable. And GB is still very pro-Israel, and I did it last night with Patrick. I said I'm not going to go as far as you. They just want to be totally pro-Israel all the times, but in the moment, I think you can't be, because it will not look good. I don't care. It's sort of wrong side of history is a cliche, but I do think Israel, I think a lot of really bad stuff is happening. So I would hate to be partisan on it and therefore take too strong a stance, because you can't really defend what's happening right now, I don't think. But I don't think Stan was taking a moral stance.
I guess my point is that is emotionally fueling the people that are fueling the front benchers and back benchers that are pressurising Starmer. And it's an emotional reaction on top of an emotional reaction. It's exacerbated all the way up the chain until it gets to Keir, and he stands up and he says words that he quite clearly perhaps doesn't even understand, let alone
it's words,
believes.
Isn't it? The left believe in words over reality. And so the reality is nothing. It's not going to do anything in this. It doesn't mean anything.
No, it will do as much as you and I are saying now. Yeah. That we are going to bring peace to the Middle East.
We're going to recognise Palestine as a state.
Yeah, I'm going to recognise. Yeah.
Well, it isn't a state, or at the moment considered so.
It's in a right state if you look at it. Actually,
you're right. It's going to do absolutely nothing, except because they live in the world of words. It may appease his half his party, who also live in that same world, and also have to appease their constituents. As you say, we're throwing them something. That's the best it can really do. Yeah. What a mess.
But it's much more than that. It's much more than that. It's very serious for the way the UK is viewed around the world. Someone like Keir Starmer in charge, you can set it back, just irrespective of his politics, just his ineptitude.
Yeah,
can set the UK politics and its strength and place within geopolitics back years.
Well, let's get on to that then when it comes to the press conference with Trump, because that sounds highly relevant to that. And we've done a decent 50 minutes. So if you want and we tend to get a lot more out of the box, and there's been some hilarious moments behind the paywall. People have talked about the one way we went about the path, the BBC documentaries and stuff, and all that, the old documentaries. That is one of the funniest bits we've ever done. But that was behind the paywall. So do that if you want to get the really funny stuff. And it's not that we hold back the funniness in the free bit. It just tends to be how it goes.
Yeah,
so that's on.
It's just our chakras are open now.
Our chakras are open. NickDixon.net, and that's like a $5 to get all our content. And go to @Paul Comedy. And so thank you to people on YouTube and the audio free version. If you want to go over to NickDixon.net, we'll be very happy to see you there.